Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. What's up, Powerlifter's Den family? Want to rep the podcast and look good while doing it? Check out my official merch store at plden.company.site. We've got tees, hoodies, beanies, hats, and more, and gear that'll keep you motivated in and out of the gym. Every purchase helps support me and the podcast and keeps the den growing strong. So whether you're hitting a heavy squat session or just lounging in style, we've got you covered. Head to plden.company.site and grab your merch today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on someone who's been known for Strongman. He's been in the sport for a while, but he's also a very well-accomplished powerlifter. Nick Best, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks. Yeah, well, I'm Nick Best. I've done 10 World's Strongest Man. I've done World's Strongest Man 10 times. I won the Masters World's Strongest Man. I'm a two-time national powerlifting champion, world powerlifting champion. I'm the all-time world record holder over the age of 50. I'm the only person to have deadlifted 800 pounds at 8:15 over the age of 50. And yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff, but it's just going to take too long.
Yeah, we'll get into that throughout the episode. But I think something that even myself discovered before when you filled out this questionnaire was just how much you accomplished in powerlifting and how just long you've been involved in strength sports as a whole. So before we kind of dive into that long, illustrious career, maybe tell us about what originally got you into it.
Well, what originally got me into powerlifting was my friend Anthony Bach, dragged me into the gym because I was a sophomore and I was 5'3" and 130 pounds and I was playing football. You need to get bigger and stronger for football. And Anthony was a year older than I was and was a year ahead of me in school. So I was the aggressive kid that they thought would develop into something that they brought into the weight room with them to, lift and learn about lifting. And I lifted for a year, competed in my first powerlifting meet in 1985, and kind of been doing it since. I just got bit by the bug and just never went away.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to me. So I started lifting for football, and then kind of during college football is when I first saw like West Side versus the World, and I started following powerlifters left and right. And I was kind of into Strongman for I loved watching it on TV, and then I was like, all right, let's do a meet. And then from there, like I said, you catch the bug and you just ride it.
Yeah, and I love doing it. I love the training. I love all of it. I like the competing. I like the camaraderie with the guys and the friends and the people you meet and the places you get to go. And it's been an amazing journey. It really has.
Yeah. And as far as like the federation, like the ADFPA and the WDFPF, just kind of federations that maybe nowadays you don't really.
USA Powerlifting that's where it came from. It was the ADFPA. Yeah. And I remember I was an NGB member. I voted for the athletes because we had 5 athletes representatives that could vote in the NGB at that time. And I was one of the athletes that helped vote to get it into the IPF back in the day, which the IPF kind of failed in their mission, which was to become an Olympic sport. They still haven't done that. And for the most part, other than keeping the same bar that you squat, bench, and deadlift on, everything else they could just get rid of, because they need to go back to the old weight classes. They need to, why would we on earth ever follow Olympic lifting weight classes? I just don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess while we're on the topic, you mentioned the bars, and I know something that one of the topics you're kind of interested in is kind of getting rid of the deadlift bar. So maybe tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of sick of it. Oh, I got the biggest deadlift. It's like, no, dude, you're doing it on a bar that gives 5 inches. The bar Ed Cohen pulled 901 with did not move. It gave maybe an inch, so it's kind of like back in the day when you're beating all these records that have been there for a long time, you're beating it with easier equipment. Yeah. Plain and simple. It's not the same equipment. So, nobody hook grip back then, almost nobody. So, I mean, those two things, it would be kind of neat to see that go and see where everybody's really at. I mean, the squats have improved, the benches have improved. Well, let's see what the deadlifts are actually really like. Because you're comparing apples to oranges when you have a bar that'll give 4 to 5 inches before the weights even come off the ground.
Yeah, and As far as
Go
like
ahead.
a squat bar,
Mhm.
obviously like it's not necessarily helping you lift more. I see it as more of a safety thing. Do you have any? Do you agree with that? It's more of kind of just a safety aspect of it not being as whippy, or do you think that's kind of a factor as well?
No, the squat bar needs to be the way it is. The Eleiko bar is incredible because it just doesn't move, it doesn't give. It's great to squat with. I have one here. That's what I squat with. You know, so if I go do a powerlifting meet and I end up on a kabuki squat bar, it's just way different. I just get used to measuring where my hands are and just measure it out. I don't change my hand grip because I have a different bar. I just use the same settings, but I like the Eleiko bar better.
Yeah, I mean, as I
Sits on your back way better.
yeah, that is one. So that is one of the things that with the getting used to a squat bar just over the past few years, like when I first started lifting in a commercial gym, it's just a power bar. So it did take a
Mhm.
while to kind of adjust to just how much thicker that bar can be.
Yeah, well, and the thicker the bar is, the more it wants to roll down your back.
Yeah,
So I mean, you got to really squeeze the bar more. It actually sits into your traps and rear delts better when you're setting up with it. So I I, I like the way they feel way better.
yeah.
It's my personal preference.
And then, like you said, you did your first meet in 1984, and even to this day, you're
Mhm.
still continuing. You said you have one coming up later this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've done Strongman. Obviously, that's what you're
Mhm.
well known for, and you've been
Yeah.
doing it for so long. And so, I wanted to kind of talk about like the longevity aspects of it. And I
Mhm.
know that Strongmen seem to have that longevity thing kind of figured out, while powerlifting, it seems that more people just kind of phase out after a few years.
Oh, there's a lot of strongmen that are in and out of the career pretty fast too. Don't But there are a lot of guys in strongman that have managed to figure it out. And to be quite honest, there was a show on Tate did a thing with Dr. Mike, and I forgot the female doc that was there, but they just did it. It just aired recently, and they were talking about how tendons and connective tissue, when you get them surgically reattached, takes so much longer to heal because the blood flows better. The blood flow is not as good,
Yeah.
and it takes so much longer to heal. And I'm like, you guys are right there. Just connect the dots. If muscle heals in 2 months and tendons heal in 6 months, what makes you think that's not the same recovery rate?
Yeah.
So your muscles might be done and healed after 2 to 3 days, but your connective tissue is not going to be completely healed from 6 to 8 days. And that's what nobody writes programs for. And that's the kind of thing I figured out probably 15 years ago after the first surgery. I kind of already was coming to this already, and apparently I trained conjugate without knowing it at the time. James pointed out to me because I rotate. I have a heavy week, I have a rep week, and I have a week where I strain my central nervous system. And I rotate all 3 weeks. So one week I'll do reps for deadlift from the ground. Then the next week I'll do a heavy deadlift. Then the next week I'll do like a heavy block pull, where I go up to, like, back in the day, I go up to like 1,100 pounds, do a set of 10, from just above my knees. And your CNS is just fried after that.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing I do for the workout. So you get used to pushing your body and pushing your CNS and then still being able to perform and train. That way you get in a contest and you don't really fry your CNS. So it helps quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now with my prep for. I'm doing a multiply meet, so like kind of with our Circumax squats, it's kind of the same idea. You just absolutely cook your CNS, and then you deload after, and then once you recover, you're just basically perfectly primed to go.
Right, right. The only thing I thought, the only adjustment I would really make to that is, instead of having a heavy week or heavy lift in the first part of the week and then a speed training later in the week, just stretch it out. The week is speed, the week is power, the week is fry your CNS. Not just the rest was, in my opinion, just the rest. You just need to adjust the rest times on West Side, and if you do that, you're going to, instead of being in and out and done in like 5 to 10 years, you'll be there 20, 30 years later.
Yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense to me. I mean, if you think about it, like you said, you just basically took that like 3 week undulating wave that like conjugate uses and basically just put it into like a mesocycle.
Right. So, and it works pretty good. I mean, part of the reason like the Bulgarians and stuff like that were so successful is they would just run I don't know, puppy mills with people and just keep crushing people. It wasn't the routine that was fixing them. It was, they would find the genetic freaks that could heal from it. And then they would heal and go, but their careers were usually very bright, but very short. You didn't have guys coming out 20, 30, 40 years later, still lifting massive amounts of weight.
Yeah.
You know, my goal right now is if I can squat 800 pounds by the end of this year, that'll be 29 years I've been able to squat over 800 pounds at a contest.
Yeah. So that's crazy because that's longer than I've been alive.
Right. So, and I don't think anyone's done that. Right now, I'm at 27 years, which I don't think anybody's done that either. But, you know, it's one of those things where I want to see if I can get to 30 years.
Yeah. And I mean, you've clearly shown, like, obviously your strength being able to do that after a long time. I mean, most people dream to squat 800 in their career anyways. So to be able to do that for so many years just shows that you clearly have it figured out.
Yeah, I've learned a thing or two. I don't talk like a doctor, but I've learned a thing or two. So it's, you know, you learn the basic understandings. And I mean, my life's pretty disciplined. I mean, I eat pretty darn solid. I try to get a good amount of rest. I don't do a lot of things that would disrupt my body's healing.
Yeah.
So, you know, the longer you can do that, the longer you'll stay doing what you love to do.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of dive into the strongman a little bit too. Kind of, I know obviously that training's a lot more different in terms of you kind of training for a competition. You kind of need to know the implements, and it's obviously like not the same repeated movements obviously over the years. You kind of do the same thing, but just getting the training style for that with the different movements and stuff. How do you kind of adjust to that and be able to recover when it's like something new?
Well, it's kind of like the West Side Principle, except for the yoke. You can put a couple things together, like yoke and farmer's walk. They're the same movement with your feet. It's just one's in your hands, one's on your shoulders. Okay, well, and the distances are very similar. So if you get used to that, 1 week you do farmers, the next week you do yoke, and just flip flop the weeks. You're not training the same thing repetitively over, but you're getting the same work in repetitively. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so 1 week you do sandbags and you load sandbags or sandbags a shoulder, and the next week you do Atlas stones. You bounce back and forth. 1 week you do, log, and the next week you do axle. So you do the different variations and you keep rotating that around so that you get, all the different implements in, you get experience with them, you get reps with them. And then when the contest comes, then you just narrow the stuff down, and your last like 4 to 6 weeks, you're just literally running mini contests, going through that with, the actual weights in most cases of the contest.
Yeah. So like for a strongman, prep is like the prep portion, basically, like you said, just running the contest multiple times.
It'll be similar. About 12 weeks out, it's okay, what are the events? And you kind of train and do the events, and then you start pulling the extra training out and get more to the events and get to contest weight. Then you run, somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks at contest weight, but just trying to bring the times down, get your movements efficient, stuff like that. The way you step with the sandbag when you pick it up, little things that will trim a second or 3/4 of a second or whatever off movements is what you're practicing at that point, because you can already do the contest weight.
Yeah. Then how would you taper like a couple weeks out? Like, what's that kind of look like?
You're not going to deadlift heavy for at least 2 weeks out. You might do one for reps at like 500 pounds. Like 2 weeks out, you might pull 500 for 20 to 25 reps just to get your cardio in, just to get, feel good. And then you just leave deadlift alone. You do stones. You do maybe half a set of stones the week before, getting ready to do it, just to run through some basic stuff. And then it's rest.
Yeah.
So you really taper this stuff off with about 2.5 to 3 weeks out. You really start tapering stuff off and let your body heal up, so that at about 10 days of, other than doing some moving things, very little, anything we're lifting, everything heavy, you're primed and ready to go.
Sweet. Yeah. So as far as your career goes, like maybe tell us about going into strongman from powerlifting, kind of balancing both, and also getting to like the time you went to the world's strongest man for the first time.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, all of it, really. I went to a strongman contest that Mark Philippi put on here in UNLV in 2003. And Mark and I were on the same world team in 1996, and we both won the WDFPF World Championships. And I went out and watched because he invited me out. And my son, who's like 2 at the time, was like, "Dad, this is cool. You're pretty strong. You should do this." And I'm like watching Grant Higa and Carl Gillingham and John Anderson and even Phil Pfister, do this contest. And then I see him get paid. And I was like, so not only can you get to have fun, but you get to get paid and make money. I was world champion and I didn't get any money.
Yeah.
So I was like, this looks cool. And I started training for it. And within probably about a year and 3 months, I had went from doing my first strongman contest to doing my 4th strongman contest and turning pro.
Yeah.
And then, I started March of 4 and turned pro in June of 5.
Yeah. So as far as something I'm kind of curious about, do you think it's easier for a powerlifter to go to strongman or vice versa?
I definitely think it's easier for a powerlifter to go to strongman because you're working on the static strength in powerlifting. And if you played football and you were a good athlete and did powerlifting, it's going to be a very easy transition. I mean, you have to be a good athlete at the same time. If you can't move quick, it's going to be an issue. And there's a lot of guys that have tried to translate over and they just don't. But if you get that static strength and you can move and you're a good athlete, it's a pretty easy transition. If you can squat over 8 and deadlift over 8 and bench in the mid 5s, when you come over in, you're going to be very successful at strongman.
Yeah, and that's something that I've kind of always thought about too. And I kind of agree with you on that aspect of people often overlook the athletic component of it because, I mean, strongman are obviously known to just be large humans, but there's obviously plenty of movements where there's plenty of athleticism required.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing a medley, picking up a 300-pound beer keg and running it and loading it onto a thing and running back and grabbing another one and going back. I mean, you're running back and forth. And the fastest time wins, so guys end up getting pretty fast.
Yeah, and as far as kind of the high levels competitions like the World's Strongest Man, do you? I feel like strongmen kind of fall into like they're either like a medley guy or a static guy, or they're kind of in between. What do you think is the most successful between like the 3?
I think you have to statically be able to hold your own with the biggest guys on the planet. But if you can do that and be athletic, I mean, Mitchell Hooper's the poster child for it now.
Yeah.
Of just being a freak athlete and yet still being freak with the static strength. I mean, there's nobody more you can point at to go, well, there you go. It's right there. It's right in front of you because that guy used to be a marathoner.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything athletically he's touched, he has not done well at. So but his mentality, the way he approaches things, the way he analyzes things, the way he analyzes movements and finds ways to shave time and how to creatively pick something up and not get hurt and be able to run with it is pretty amazing. And his just willingness to suffer.
Yeah, that's
you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and miserable.
Yeah, and that goes across all strength sports for sure. Like obviously with awkward movement and stuff, like if you're doing like the carousel wheel, like holding it in like that Zerch position and all that shit, like that shit's not comfortable.
No, the Conan's wheel is very uncomfortable. But there's tricks. I mean, there's tricks to it. I mean, wearing your belt properly and knowing how to catch, your elbows on your belt and then brace that with your hands, or if you have a belly, how to brace your hands on the belly holding the Conan's wheel is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, for like being in the sport for so long, obviously you kind of learn these tricks, but for someone like maybe newer to strongman, if they're trying to like find resources to like learn these little tips and tricks to kind of just shave things here and get that extra stone or whatever it is, like where do you go to learn these things?
A lot of it's just go to the contest and compete and get experience. The other part is watch the contest, but break it down, slow it down, pull up the videotape of it and be like, how did he pick this up and why? Ask yourself the questions. Why did he pick it up that way? Did he pick it up with technique or did he pick it up just flat out brute power? You know, and well, okay, that looked like technique. Okay, what was he doing? How did he do it? What was it sitting on? You know, pull it all apart as you're looking at it. Watch his steps. How is he taking his steps and things like that? Just break it down like if you're watching game film for a football game. You know, you're going to break down how the offensive lineman steps when you're a defensive lineman, so you know how to attack him. It's the same thing. It's just look at it and watch, and then find people with experience and ask them questions.
Yeah. So when did you when did you get invited to the World's Strongest Man for the first time?
2010. I had almost made it in 2009. I went to IFSA Worlds in 2006 and 2007. IFSA folded at the end of 2007. And then it took me a couple years to figure out my way in. And then I almost made it in 2009. If I would have won in Romania, instead of getting second, I would have got invited, but they took Marshall White that year. And then I won the Fit Expo the next year, and Colin Bryce called me. He's like, hey, you did great. I'm like, thanks. He goes, dude, you're good. You have your invite. Awesome. I wanted to invite you last year, but you got it this year. Get ready. And I did. And first one out of the gate, I got 6th place and did well. So
yeah.
It was fun.
And I guess, maybe tell us more about the experience, like the first time kind of going to it.
Oh, that was nuts because we flew into South Africa and took a 3-hour bus ride to Sun City. And you come into Sun City and it's like crazy resort. You know, it's got a wave pool, it's got golf courses, it's got all this other stuff. It's an amazing resort to go to. But it's kind of surreal when you have an athletes meeting and you're sitting there and they're going through, you know, your heats and where you're supposed to be. And then you got your media day. You know, if you're not ready for that, you're like, oh God, and you're sitting there they're interviewing you and asking you questions about things. And, but that burns up a lot of energy. So you have to learn how to get through all those things and still eat and still do everything else at the same time. But it's a surreal experience. You're like, oh my God, this is real. This is going to be on TV. You know, this is the big time. So
yeah, and I can only imagine, like you said, if you're not kind of prepared for that, like that media aspect of it, like I can see for if you're like a what's the word I'm looking for? Not shy, but you know what I mean, introverted. There we go. If you're an introverted person, you got to kind of put on that act. Like that shit's exhausting. Like if you're an introverted person, you have to speak in front of someone for a day. Like end of the day, you're just as tired as the competition.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll shoot 5, 6, 7 takes. Sometimes say it like this, and you're like, oh, and they're like, no, say it like this. You're like, oh, no, like this, and so you'll sit there and go through things till they get it right, and it can wear on people.
Yeah, and as far as kind of preparing, once obviously,
but then you got to go through the doctors too.
Oh yeah.
So they go through you. You have to go to the hospital and get a heart Doppler. So you have to go through, get an EKG, heart Doppler, stuff like that. They do your blood test. They go through every part of you. You sit down with the doctor. They go through all your joints, through everything to make sure you're going to be okay while you're there.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's another thing with Strongman that I like and that I wish kind of powerlifting has was with the media aspect of it, kind of getting to know the personalities behind the lifters more. That's something that the Reach Rumble did back in September and like kind of what the ABS powerlifting series is doing. And I think that's something that is a huge way to grow powerlifting because it's made Strongman that much more entertaining.
Oh yeah. Well, because if people know who the athletes are, they're going to want to watch. You know, if they like you, they're gonna want to watch.
Yeah.
And the personality and how, you know, scared, excited, you know, elated, mad, angry, all the gamut of emotions you go through when you hit something right or you hit something wrong. You know, it draws people in.
Yeah, and kind of when you went to that first World's Strongest Man competition where some of like the, I guess, quote unquote, big names like Brian and Eddie and them, were they there? It was like, was any of them your first time meeting them or did you see them at competitions before?
So basically my first one, I already knew Travis Ortmeyer because we competed in IFSA. Brian turned pro at the same contest I did as a pro. So I won my amateur at Van Hatfield's I won my pro card at Van Hatfield's meet in 2005. The very next year, he put on another contest. That's where Brian got his. So I was competing in the pro side, and Brian was competing in the amateur side at that time. So I had known Brian since then. Sadrunas I knew from IFSA World. So I met Sadrunas. We got to compete with him the first time in 2006. So most of the guys that were there, I already knew Dave Oslin, Misha Kukliev, I knew him from IFSA. Trying to think. There was a few guys that I met for the first time, but I kind of knew everybody already.
Yeah.
Because we'd already competed in other places.
Yeah, it's another thing I'm interested in too, is like the show that you, Brian, Eddie, and Oberst did. It was so entertaining, and I was a big fan of that show. I kind of want to know what kind of the relationship that kind of grew into, whether it was kind of you guys had that like little circle before. Is it something that kind of grew heavily throughout the show?
Well, we were already friends before. I mean, Robert and I had already did a pilot for a Strongman show. It was going to be called Texas Strongman, which I was like, I don't live in Texas, and neither does Robert, but whatever. And Ortmeyer was going to be in that too, but that's when Ortmeyer was in his dark days. But yeah, so Robbie and I already got along. He was the funny guy. I was kind of the straight guy. And then Brian and Eddie, we already knew them from competing with them and doing everything over the years. And it was just, we already all hung out together anyway. So it was just throw us in the room and let us go. You know, just a bunch of adult children who like to lift things and get into trouble.
Yeah.
It's like hurting. I feel bad. It was almost the girl that had to get us all of the places, and then Sarah, like places we had to go and the things we had to do. We had to be like herding cats. We really did. And then we were eating all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So
yeah, because I remember some of like all the aftertakes where you guys just like eating a ton of food and shit anyway. So
oh yeah. No, it's about every 2 to 3 hours we had to stop for a full meal.
What was your favorite part? Not necessarily like funniest moment, but like maybe like favorite feat attempted on that show.
Oh man, actually, probably for me, there's a few of them, but I mean, I like coming back and missing Paul Anderson squat and then coming back and getting it.
Yeah, that was
kind of cool. And then lifting the carousel at his boys' ranch and stuff like that with his family on the carousel. That was pretty special.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole thing was amazing. It really was.
Yeah.
Every place we went, it was kind of like, oh, wow. You know, it was very surreal.
Yeah, and that's what's another really cool part about Strongman is just like the history behind it, because one of the things with Strongman was figuring out how to move awkward shit. So like people have been doing that for hundreds of years. So
oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And so it's neat. You pull up this old feat of strength, you talk about the guy that did it, and then you try to see how he did it at his best. You know, we're trying to do it for the first time, and he did it, you know, so many times. This was his best thing. So it was pretty neat getting to do some of those things. It really was. It really gave you a special feeling because you're bringing these people's amazing feats of strength back to life, and then introducing it to the public.
Yeah, and as far as kind of maybe some behind the scenes or kind of off camera things, like what are some of maybe one of the funnier moments that have happened on that when you're filming?
Oh, geez. Probably the funniest thing that didn't make the film was when I messed up throwing this thing, and I had to take the ice bath in Minnesota. And they're dumping the ice on my head and all the other stuff. And I'm like freezing. They leave me in there for a couple minutes longer than what I was supposed to be in. And I get out and I'm getting dried off. Well, they cut at that point, but they kept rolling. But that was it. That was supposed to be the end of it. And I was just starting to get warm. I'd been like 3 or 4 minutes. I'm sitting there. Everybody else left. I'm sitting there talking to Sarah. I'm trying to stay warm. And all of a sudden I see Sarah jump out of the way. Eddie jumps out with another 5-gallon bucket of the ice water and dumps it on top of me and just bolts for the door. And I'm like, I just went chasing him up the stairs and stuff. That was really funny. And they cut that out because they thought it was too mean, but it was funny as hell.
Yeah, I could only imagine just even from just the show, seeing some of the things that Eddie done and kind of just like being like a little kid to you is just some of the funniest shit ever.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. I mean, Eddie pissing off the docks in Canada um, onto the drone was pretty funny. There's just so many things. Well, the arrest warrant that's out for him as
Oh,
well.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, we were training at the. We talked about this on Brian's show, podcast, Shot Strength podcast. Brian and I were squatting, and Eddie and Robert were doing leg press because they didn't want to squat with us. And Robert was doing the leg press. They were talking shit all day back and forth to one another. And then Eddie drops trowel, but he doesn't just pull his ass out a little bit. He drops it all the way down to his knees. So everything's dangling. And this guy gets so offended, and he just goes bolting for the front desk. And we're like, we need to get out of here right now. So we got out of there. We get back to the hotel. Brian and Eddie are done with all their stuff. They got flights. They grab their stuff in the room. They pack up. They're out the door and they're gone. They're both headed to the airport. Robert and I went out with the crew and everybody, and we just had a great night, just out bar hopping and stuff. Come in the next morning and there's the Mounties looking for. Do you know where Eddie Hall is? I'm like, this time right now? Yeah, it probably just landed in Heathrow. Really? I'm like, yeah, we were done filming yesterday. Then we came and worked out. They came back. Him and Brian packed up and took off. Why? He's not here. Are you sure? I'm like, 100%. Did you go look at his hotel room? There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And sure enough, yeah.
And that's the kind of bigger picture here too, is just the amount of friends and like community you can make within strongman or powerlifting is just amazing. And just seeing like having that kind of broadcasted to the world and being like, see, we're not just a bunch of meatheads, we actually have personalities is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I mean, the four of us together, I don't think you could have picked a better mixture of things, because you got, I'm the older guy that's just kind of like,
yeah,
and everybody else is just having a ball. So we had a great time. We really did. It's stuff I'll never forget.
Yeah, and then I guess back to powerlifting. I know you said you have a meet coming up this year. What meet is it doing, and kind of what's the goal for it?
So we're not exactly sure which meet I'm going to do yet. I was talking to Ed the other day, Cohen, and he's like, yeah, you should do one this year. I'm like, sweet, because if he says you should do one, he says don't do one, just get ready for Strongman. You don't do one, you just get ready for Strongman. And my squats, I've been starting to get my butt down, and he's like, yeah, maybe you should do one this year. I think you should do it as a warm-up and then do, Masters World's Strongest Man again, because I'm going to go for the 51 this year.
There we go.
And he's like, yeah, maybe we hit a warm-up one in October and then do Masters World's Strongest Man and then hit another one and really go after that one. I was like, sounds great to me. So I'm looking anywhere between June and October for a powerlifting meet, and then I'll get ready for the Masters World's Strongest Man in November, December.
And where's that this year?
Wherever they hold the official Strongman games. It was in Wisconsin last year, where they do the CrossFit games. So hopefully they do it again there this year, but you don't know until they announce it. So could be back in Florida, could be here in Vegas for all I know. I don't know. It's just wherever they tell us we're doing it.
Yeah, and obviously like Masters, it's obviously older for the group age, but as far as kind of the difference in competition between like a regular World's Strongest Man, like what are some of the biggest differences?
Well, the biggest difference is it's a total of 6 events. We're done, or even 7, and we're done. It's 2 events one day, 2 events the next day, 2 or 3 events the last day, and you're done. And on the last day, it's only the top 10. At World's Strongest Man, it's 3 events one day, 3 events the next day, maybe have a day off, 3 events one day and 3 events the next day, and then you're done. So it's 12 events, and you're just beat to a pulp after that.
Yeah. And then I guess in terms of the difference between, say, a powerlifting meet and even if it's a weekend event or just a one-day competition, kind of being able to keep that high energy, that same level of recovery, what are some of the things that can be used in both of those sports? Like obviously nutrition and hydration, but maybe some little things that you learned over the years. Yeah,
nutrition, stuff like that. Do medleys. I know powerlifting doesn't like to do cardio and stuff like that because you think you're not really. It takes a lot of cardio to burn the muscle tissue off.
Yeah.
So it's not going to kill you, but do medleys if you don't want to do that. Get through your whole entire leg day, pick up a 300-pound keg, run 25 meters, drop it onto a 100-pound tire, and then drag it backwards. Do that 2 or 3 times. You're going to get unbelievable cardio out of it. You're going to recover from like your squats. You're going to do your squat, and you're going to be standing there. Everybody else is out of breath, and you're just like,
yep.
Oh, we only got 9 guys, so we're going fast. Everybody's complaining. You're just like, all right, when do I start wrapping my knees? Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
You don't think anything twice about it. That was kind of like the surprising thing when I did the U.S. Open in 2017. Is there were guys back there that were out of breath. I'm like, what are you guys doing? You're warming up. It's only like 500 pounds. Why are you out of breath? And you shouldn't be in that kind of physical condition. You should be breathing a little bit after your last 2 squats.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be pushing you to that level, but it shouldn't be like something that takes you 20 minutes to recover from. You should be good and done and ready to go in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And so you said the powerlifting, a powerlifting myth that you wanted to debunk was kind of the cardio is bad for powerlifting. Now, to clarify on that, do you mean like genuinely like going for sprints and going for jogs and stuff, or are you just saying like general GPP is good enough too?
I would say the 2 things. Sprints are not going to hurt anything.
Yeah.
So if you go run, say, start at like maybe 5:30s, don't even run the full 40 yards, but just all out sprints for 30 yards. Yeah, you do like 5 of those and eventually get to where you can do 10. You're fine. And take 45 seconds to a minute to rest between each one. You're going to be fine, and it's going to do nothing but make you faster and better and move better. And then do the carry and drags and stuff like that. Do 1 or 2 of those at the end of your leg day. It's going to blow your legs up. You're going to, it's going to wipe you out. It'll finish the day off, but it's not going to cause a lot of damage. But your circulatory system is going to really benefit from it, and you won't get tired of the meat.
Yeah, and that's something that, like, with me coming from college football and college wrestling too, like a couple years ago, I still consider myself an athlete, and I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm a couple years removed, and I don't want to lose that necessarily athlete card. So I'm kind of starting to get back into running, because I know that obviously putting on weight and getting stronger, like, that's great and all, but at the same time, if my body is not in shape, it's not going to be able to adapt to the new strength.
Right. And then what good does it do to be ungodly strong and not be able to put force to ground?
Yeah.
To use it athletically. It's if you can't get and harness that on something that you're just walking around down the street doing, it's useless.
Yeah.
You want your strengths to be functional.
Exactly. And like you said,
that makes you a scary person.
Yeah. And if you know how your body works from a proprioception level and just being able to actually survive through a workout, your body is going to adapt and grow at a much faster rate than just a fat slob, essentially.
Correct. Yeah, and it'll recover from it too, because blood in and blood out is what creates muscle healing. So when you get an injury, sitting around doing nothing is not going to make you heal. You get up and go moving around and go doing things. If you have a leg injury, yeah, it's going to create some problems for you. But like when I tore my lat off and had it surgically reattached, I was out 2 days after the surgery doing drags and step-ups. Yeah. I was doing things to create circulation and stuff like that. And my doctor looked at me and he just thought I was out of my mind. He surgically reattached it, I think like May 22nd. And I did a powerlifting meet the following year, May 3rd or 4th, and pulled 744 in 50 weeks.
Yeah. And I mean, this just kind of happened. I didn't like tear it or anything, but I had like a pec pop, and like if you went to a doctor for that, he'd be like, all right, rest 6 weeks, don't do anything. But I was in my garage doing 500 pec flies, doing the bar a bunch of times, and like, it's basically good to go now. Just keep it moving.
Yeah. So not doing it, they're going to tell you the safest way to do things so that you don't sue them.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you. There's eventually now starting to get material out there like, yeah, you should be moving around. You should be moving through your full range of motion as best as you can. You don't have to force it, but you need to go do it. Go get in a pool. Go stand in the pool. It takes all the weight off of everything, and then just start moving stuff around. When you need more resistance, move it faster because water will create more resistance.
Yeah.
That way. And the speed is what's going to help you get stronger anyway. So things like that will make a big difference in recovery.
As far as your lat tear, how did you do that, and kind of what, like, obviously I know your recovery time, you said you competed a year later, but what was the cause of that?
The cause of it, I tried to do a one-arm deadlift with 440 3 weeks before, and I was told, you might want to watch that. And I went and did it anyway, and I was trying to break the world record in the deadlift. It's 8:15. Trying to break my own damn record.
Yeah.
It was good. It was my second attempt, and I pulled it off the ground like, oh yeah, I got this. And about 3/4 of the way up my shins, it just popped off.
Oh.
And rolled down. So it came off the humerus and rolled down here.
Oh, that from the top to bottom?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's probably so much worse.
It couldn't even feel it. It was almost painless.
You think that's just from the adrenaline or just from the way the injury is?
I think it's come the way the injury is. There's not a lot of pain receptacles or pain receptors in nerves or in nerves and tendons.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. So the tendon just sheared off. And so it rolled down in there and didn't really hurt. I had a little bruise about this big where it had come off at, and that's it. The next day I was out riding a scooter. Didn't hurt unless I flexed it and it cramped.
Yeah.
If I didn't flex it and it didn't cramp, it did hurt. And so got to the surgeon 3 days after that, and then his wife's birthday was the following weekend, so we went to her birthday, and then that's why it was the 22nd. But yeah.
So for the meet you did a year later, would you say you were back to 100% by then? Were you back to 100% before then? Like where did that recover?
I was probably at about 94, 95% at that time. I was in the 90s at least, for sure.
Yeah, so I guess my next follow-up question to that would be, obviously, powerlifter, strongman, we go through injuries. There's also plenty of us who want to push it to the limits, keep going, and there's others that will just take a step back from the sport and basically retire. So for you, what are some of the, I guess, maybe what's that point where it's, all right, this is good enough to go with, or let's take some more time?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of gauge by what I'm doing, how it feels. I learned how to read my body really well. If something doesn't feel right, I'm just like, okay, well, this is what I have today. And so this is when I'm going to get the work out of it. I'm still going to train, but I'm only going to maybe 40, 50% today because it just feels off. The next week I come in, my plan is to be at 65. I'll go to the full 65 and put my work in. So, I mean, it just kind of depends on how I feel that day.
Yeah.
But I learned to read the body. And when the body says back off, one extra day's rest is not going to kill anybody. The muscle doesn't even start breaking down for atrophy until, 10 days?
I think it's even longer. It's like almost 2 to 3 weeks now, I think the recent said. But
right. So, but how long does it take tendons to heal?
Yeah. What did you say? A couple months?
Well, no. From an injury.
Yeah.
But how long does it take to heal from training?
I don't know. What's the current study say on that?
Not really a study, but below 35, you're good in about 6 days from your training. So if you squatted 6 days later, you should be good to go with your tendons. Your muscle's going to be healed in 3.
Yeah.
So if you're over 35, it's 7 days. If you're over 45, it's 8 days.
Yeah, and as far as that kind of recovery time with the tendons, is that something that if you're pushing a max effort movement, do you need that full 6 days just to get max effort again, or to get maybe a volume day in? Or can a volume day kind of help that process?
It's volume week. It's weight week. That's the only thing. If you take it, instead of turning it days and having a heavy day and then a rep day type of thing, and go week and space it out by the week, your longevity is going to go an extra 10 to 15 years.
Interesting.
Your gains will be a little bit slower, but the slow and methodical is what's going to carry you there. And once you get to the top of that, you'll stay there until you get bored.
I mean, it's the classic slow and steady wins the race right there.
Yeah. And those those recovery times make the biggest difference on everything, because a lot of things don't affect your tendons. A lot of things don't affect tendon recovery. The muscles will heal way faster, but the tendons aren't going to heal that much faster. So it's kind of like you want to make sure those are healed before you work the muscle again.
Yeah, and as far as once you kind of get to that, I guess, quote unquote, elite level strength, and you're a pro strongman and stuff, like half the battle isn't necessarily getting stronger or building anymore. It's literally just staying healthy.
Yes, 100%. Whoever can come into the contest the less beat up usually is going to make the podium.
Yeah.
You know, especially with the rate a lot of these guys are competing now, because they're under contracts and they're making money at it and stuff like that. You know, you're like, okay. And then you get to that world international elite level out of nowhere. You've been competing like 2-3 years, and all of a sudden you start getting invited to everything. That's where the guys will make the big mistakes, and they'll go to like 8, 9, 10 contests in a year where they're trying to win, and eventually they start placing lower and lower and lower because their body's just beat up. They have to learn, pick and choose the contest you're going to, and be smart about it. You know, hit your big 3, hit your big 4, and then do maybe 1 or 2 others, and that's it.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. Was like for a pro level strongman, like what's kind of the range of amount of competitions like you'd want to see someone be doing in a year? Like, what do you think is too much?
So it depends on how you kind of go after it. There's 2 basic philosophies. There's Brian Shaw's philosophy, and you have Sadrunas Savickas, trying to say it right, but philosophies. Sadrunas would use the contest as training. He'd hit 1 or 2 gym days, and then everything was training. He'd go hit like 20, 30 contests, but he's also way up here.
Yeah.
So for him, the weights that they were doing at the smaller contests weren't World's Strongest Man or Arnold weights. They were much less, but so it was easier for him to go recover from. And then you have Brian, who's, I'm going to do these 4 or 5 big shows a year. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to come in, I'm going to lay the wood to everybody. And that's what he did. And he analyzed things and was very smart with it. So either one will work, but you know, which direction do you want to go?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Which one do you prefer? Which one will your body adapt to better?
Yeah, and I think for the powerlifting side, I think 2 to 3 is something that you can manage. It's when you start getting into these pro level meets where you're getting invited and you start signing up for all of them, and you just, everyone's like, why is my total going nowhere? Why am I getting injured all the time? It's because you're trying to peak 7 times a year when you should only be peaking like twice a year.
Right. And it's just, you're just beating a dead horse. You go put the work in, you let it recover, and then you let it, just let it loose. And then you have to back it down and do it again. And, it's just, more is not better a lot of times.
Yeah. Less is more for sure in this side of the world.
Yeah. And that's what people just don't seem to get. And nobody writes programs based on tendons healing.
Yeah.
If you want to last a long time, don't break tendons. You're gonna live a long. You're gonna be here a long time.
Yeah.
So if you do that and you're patient, patience have kind of gone out the window too. So it's slow, methodical gains over a year. And if you get there, if you get your training and you get your training right, you should only be 8 weeks out of any contest anyway. You should be pretty goddamn strong all year round, especially if you're a professional.
Yeah, and that's something in powerlifting now that I'm a big fan of, a much shorter prep, because once it gets to a certain point, like, how to peak your body. Even if you have a coach, like, what he's going to do, you can do it in a 6 to 4 week period of time, where you don't need to do like a 12-week prep and have the first 8 weeks just be volume blocks to build up to it. Like, you should be doing that year round anyways.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I can honestly say I do a lot. I've learned things from Bull Stewart, Ed Cohen, and then I picked up some of Dorian Yates' philosophies, and then, the Mike Mentzer heavy duty stuff. I mixed a lot of that stuff together and came up with what works for me. And then it turns out it's like conjugate. So or very similar to it. So that type of stuff really works well. I just adjusted it to how my body will heal. And that's how people should adjust their own training, because you know your body better than anybody else. But I run things through. Like, I'll call Ed. I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, what's going on? What are you doing? And I'll send him what I'm doing, send him videos of it. And he's just like, okay, do this. That looked great. Please get your ass down a little further. It looks good, but you need another inch or two in your depth. You know, work it this way, work it that way, do this exercise, do this to loosen it up. But, you know, you should also know how to do a lot of this yourself.
Yeah, and I think an athlete that can auto-regulate, like, for example, I guess for me, say like I'm running 3 weeks of like tricep rollbacks or something as an accessory. I know after like 3 to 4 weeks, I'll start getting a little bit of elbow tendonitis. So I'll just be like, hey, coach, I'm switching it to skull crushers this week. It's going to just take a little bit off. And if someone can do that and learn to do that, it's going to increase their longevity, because they're not going to, their coach isn't going to know what's happening to them on a daily basis like that.
That's a massive thing, because you know how your body's going to feel better than anybody else. You know when you're sandbagging, you know when you're not sandbagging. So don't sandbag.
Yep.
Do the best you can on each one and adapt things as you go. You're not going to get hurt as much. You're going to perform better, and you're going to enjoy what you're doing. And as long as you're having fun at it, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we can kind of. What were you gonna say?
Well, that's when I'll stop. When I'm not having fun and it's just not enjoyable, then I'm going to stop. But my goal is to show, people that you can stop when you get bored.
Yeah. Not many people can say that.
Yeah. You don't have to stop just because you're getting older.
Yeah.
You have to be smarter about it. You have to take longer rest periods. Your diet has to be a lot strict, much more strict. I mean, things I would change that, looking back, I would never take ibuprofen.
I fully agree. I stopped taking that a few years ago.
Yep. Throw that away. Anything that's like that, just go take an ice bath.
Yep. That's exactly what I did. So I'm glad to see that it clearly works.
Oh, well, I had a kidney problem.
Yeah.
So turns out in 2022, going into Masters World's Strongest Man, I was doing a speed bench with like 4 1/4, and I just drove it off, and I've never ever had it come out of my thumbs, and my thumbs were around the bar, and it popped out.
Oh wow!
Came down on my chest. I had to go to the hospital to make sure I didn't have internal bleeding, and they had an incidental finding and found a tumor about 1/3 of the size of my kidney in my kidney.
Oh shit!
And that was October 12th. They took my kidney January 3rd. So it was that serious. They got it out fast. I mean, like in 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a blessing in disguise too.
Yeah, it was total blessing in disguise. I'd be dead already if it wasn't, because we wouldn't have known. I was having no symptoms.
Yeah.
My kidneys were functioning 100%. Everything was fine. But after that happens, you start going, okay, well, I got one left. I want to keep lifting. I want to keep doing these things. I have to clean everything else that's strenuous on my kidney out.
Yeah.
Alcohol's out. Ibuprofen's out, aspirin's out, any kind of painkillers, they're out. Well, best way to get rid of inflammation is go sit in an ice tub. So it's kind of what I started doing. I wish I would have started doing that way sooner.
Yeah, well,
way sooner.
I'm glad I figured out that decision, and I guess we'll see how it pays off in 30 years.
Yeah, you will. You will.
But I think we can kind of wrap things up here. So I'll ask you my final question. If you could give either a new strongman or a new powerlifter going into their first meet or their first competition a word of advice, what would you tell them?
Word of advice. While you're competing back there with the guys at a super high level, watch them. When you're back where they are, when they're warming up, when they're doing everything, when they're putting on their equipment, everything that they're doing, just go sit there and watch them. Watch what they're doing, watch how they do it, and just take mental note of all the things that they're doing, and then ask yourself, why did they do that and what made them successful about it? If you do that, you're going to learn more just in that simple thing than you're probably going to learn in 2 or 3 years talking with other people.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice.
It'll really get you a lot further quickly.
Definitely. Well, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to come on. It was my pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks, man. And looking forward to talking to everybody like him.
Yeah.